Hey, what is going on? Carlos Whittaker podcast familia. Listen, this episode, I need you to grab the pen and paper, put the needle on the record, and the drum beat goes like this. Because we've got the one, the only, Annie F. Downs on the podcast. And listen, I don't know if Annie has talked about all the stuff she's going to talk about today. We're talking about leadership. We're talking about entrepreneurship. We're talking about what does it look like to start something and lead something, and when do you stop leading the thing that you felt like you were called to lead, and when do you kind of grind it out? All kinds of incredible stuff happening this week on the Carlos Whittaker podcast. Thank you for tuning in, for hanging out. I am ready for summer to be over. Listen, I know some of you are summer people. Some of you are love to sweat, love to feel all of the heat and the water droplets pour out of your pores. But that's just not something that I enjoy. Is that okay? Sue me, I am currently really hot. Like hotter than I've ever been. Not hotter than I've ever been, but I'm like coming out of being in Tanzania. Okay. Like Tanzania is hot. You think it's hot in America. It's hotter in Tanzania. Can I just go ahead and let you know that? And then I have been in Italy, where it also was hot. We vacation with our close friends, Alex and Henry Seeley, and they're also my pastors, and they love to be hot. And so, the sacrifice that I make for the relationship is just to be hot with them because I enjoy them so much. One day I will convince Alex and Henry to vacation with me in an igloo somewhere. But I digress. How is your summer going? Have you been enjoying the series so far? Have you been enjoying the conversations that hopefully are leading you and helping you in whatever business facet you find yourself in? If you're an employee, and you've got an intern underneath you and you're leading them, if you are leading your family, if you are leading as a CEO and you've got 10 people or 1,000 people, I'm hopeful that these conversations have been helpful. And I know that this conversation today is going to be extremely helpful because it was helpful for me. I kind of was like, wow, I feel like I'm getting business coached by Annie F. Downs. And she's just so good. I've gotten to see the guts of her organization. And can I tell you, I've seen the guts of a lot of organizations. Annie is one of the most integrity-filled leaders that I know. And you're going to learn a lot about leadership from her. So let's hop right into the conversation. I present to you my conversation with the one and only Annie F. Downs. Okay, Carlos Whittaker podcast friends, I have in front of me the one and only Annie F. Downs.
What an honor, my friend. What an honor. A year ago, we were out on the tour together. When memories pop up on your phone, on your iPhone, and like all the things, and honestly, like I am very nostalgic about that right now. Like that was so fun. Yeah, it was kind of the beautiful thing about tours. I think you've done a lot more than I have, so correct me if I'm wrong. But my experience in touring is every one of them, even if you do the exact same content, if the style is the same, every one of them is a once in a lifetime. Yeah. It is 12 shows that you'll never do. I mean, we do 12 different shows, so every show is once in a lifetime, but you never do the same thing twice, and you never have the exact same people with the exact same snacks and the exact same season of their life like we had June of 23. And so it will stick in my memory as a really unique once in a lifetime thing. I'm so grateful we got to do that together. It
was awesome. And I'm just calling it again in the next few years. We're gonna do other things together.
Oh, I'd love it. Yeah, of course.
It was awesome. It was actually, I've toured a whole bunch. It was my favorite tour I've ever done, and I want to say it was probably because it was like with my friends. There's just something about when you're the one picking things and you and I were picking things, and it was just like, oh, we kind of built this thing together.
That's right. And there's from in my experience as well, there's an ease when a lot of people are friends. Like, because we are managed by the same company, our tour manager is someone you and I both work with every day, Jamie, and Ashley, who works for me, that went out, Sayana, who went out with you. I mean, it's just like we all already were in good relationship, and that's not very often possible. So it's not even like a thing to pursue necessarily every time, but it just was a gift to us last year.
And it kind of happens like that in our city, right? Like in half of our city, you know, as you live halfway in half the time in Nashville and half in New York City. But the majority of your life, the last 10 years, 15 years has been in Nashville. Yeah. And you know, what I love about Nashville is that, you know, the longer you live here, the more people you know, the more people that you're connected with, the more you work with your friends, the more your friends work with your friends, even when you're not, you know, suddenly involved. Like Sayana, my daughter that just graduated from college, is suddenly working for Kyle Chowning, who is like,
is she?
One of, like our full time. Like she's like
at
digital
Roots?
Marketing. Yes, at Roots.
Oh, and that's awesome.
And I'm like, now my kids are working for my friends, and it's all, you know, he texts me and he's like, hey, Sayana just graduated from college. Is she looking for a job? I just love the way the city does that, right?
And it just doesn't, if you live well, and by living well doesn't mean perfect behavior, it just means being integrated and whole and apologetic and and humble. And, you know, if you live well in Nashville, you don't ever really slam a door behind you.
Yes.
And so there's just always an opportunity that actually what happens is your bank of opportunities in relationship, particularly when it comes to working in our field, just grows. Yeah. I have, I'm sure you have. I'm not sure you have. I have burned bridges. There are people that won't work with me anymore. I certainly haven't done this perfectly, but the longer I've done it, the more I'm aware that, like, if I will live humbly and integrated as an Annie, then the experience other people have of me is closer to what I want them to have, and therefore they're more willing to work with me again in the future.
How does one, I mean, let's just start here. You know, how does one live humbly in a season of life where they're trying to grow, get ahead, trying to grow their business, trying to, like, what is the balance of, because we all know people that are very successful business people that have plowed and mowed their way to where they're at. What do you think the difference is in maybe how we're trying to do this versus somebody that's super successful that has maybe done it the other way?
Well, I will tell you, my nature is to bulldoze. My nature is to go as fast as I can, as hard as I want to, in the direction of the thing that I want to get. And so there are times where I still do that. And there are times where I have to catch myself. And I mean, this is it's not a silly quote. It's just like so repeated. If you want to go far, go alone. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Yeah. And so a little bit of that is humility looks like slowing down for a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of leaders, because we think fast, we make decisions fast, we act fast. And that is how we're leaders. I mean, by nature, the people who don't do those things very often are more gifted in support roles or in leading, not in the public space. Right. One's not better than the other. It's just different giftings. Yep. Therefore, it's important for me and my giftings, because as we know, the shadow side is the opposite side of the coin from the blessing side, right? Is that I have to surround myself with people who slow me down, who I frustrate them and they frustrate me. Yep. And yet I know the gift of God in my life is the people who help me slow down, make slower decisions, think about the humans involved, not just the thing I'm trying to accomplish. Yeah. The core of humility for me is that I have 100% attendance to my sin. Like, I haven't missed one. Right. And so I know exactly who I am. Like, I know exactly what tempts me. I know exactly what I think. And when my thoughts gross me out, I mean, I've never not been me. And I've never gotten to take a vacation from my sin and my sinful nature. And so therefore there is this really good opportunity for me all the time to be like, who else is going to remember as much as you? Right. Like, totally. Like, you know who you are. And this is true for you too. We've had professional wins and we've had pretty pretty significant professional losses.
Yeah.
And I was sitting with Dallas Jenkins, the creator of The Chosen. And, he has a really profound story about this, about making a movie that you should have him on. It's such a profound. Have you had him yet?
Really? No.
Oh my gosh. It's a really beautiful story of how this first movie failed of his. And I was sitting with him and his family a couple of weeks ago at breakfast. And I said, I think my DNA changed when I had a professiontional failure. And he said, that is absolutely what happens.
Wow.
He was like, you suddenly realize, I just had this moment. Carlos, you and I haven't even got to talk about this. I had this moment a few months ago where I went like, oh, if I'm doing everything I can do.
Yep.
And pulling every lever and employing every opportunity and taking and thinking up new things. If I am doing everything I can do and we aren't winning,
right,
then I'm not in control here. God is.
Yes.
And what that actually said to me, the DNA shift in me was, then that means when I'm doing everything I can do and pulling every lever and we are winning, that is also not me.
Wow. Woo.
And I haven't learned that in the wins.
Yeah.
I have taken credit in the wins, but in recent, and we can talk about it. Anyone who has a podcast knows that podcasts are not having an easy season right now. Every podcast that you and I care about and listen to has less numbers than they did a year ago.
Yep.
Full stop. Maybe not Blurry Creatures. And that's probably about it. That's the one I'm thinking of that shot up. But we're having to solve some problems.
Yep.
And the Lord has really beautifully used it to be like, hey, you're not doing anything different. But the result is different because I am the one who determines open and closed doors, not you.
Wow.
And I have needed to learn that because my hope is when we go into the next thing, whatever it is, and we go into the next season, that I will more quickly honor God for the wins because I am very aware that I cannot create them. Because I can't create the losses. I'm busting my tail feathers to not have a single loss. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. God is the one who opens and closes doors.
Oh, wow. I think, gosh, it's once you experience that in a very real, tangible way, right? Like I'm just imagining like Annie, like pulling the levers and doing all the things like, oh, this one worked last time. This one worked last time. This one. And then suddenly it stops.
That's right.
The levers are like not moving anymore. I'm definitely in seasons like I've gone through seasons like that. I'm in a season like that, with a certain aspect of what I do. And I think sometimes, we are scared to think of what would we be without this thing. What if the Lord suddenly takes that thing completely away? Like I just announced a book that's coming out this fall. I can't wait either. Like
Can I read it now?
Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely.
I can read the first 2 chapters right now.
Well, you can.
It's a pre-order.
I can actually send you the whole thing. So, but here's the thing. When I was there, right, when I was at the monastery for those 2 weeks, or really for these 7 weeks, nobody knew a single win in my life. Like the monks didn't know who I was. The Amish didn't know who I was. Yeah. Nobody cared. Like all of that was taken away. And I had to get to the place where I'm like, is my identity still in where it needs to be if I have none of the other stuff that used to define me?
Yes.
And I feel like, this conversation where I do feel like a lot of people are pulling levers that aren't working like they used to work anymore.
I mean, that has to be true in marriages. I've had that happen in dating relationships.
Yeah.
It happens in friendship. It happened when I taught school. It definitely isn't a unique to being a public figure or even the leader at a company.
Right.
Nothing has devastated me like when I think you and I have talked about this. I mean, the 87 breakups I've experienced, but
we've only talked about 85 of them.
Yeah. Well, bless you. I saved you from the 2 probably must not have mattered that much if I didn't get you involved. You and Heather walking me through some of those has been important. But my best friend and I had a pretty nasty breakup of friendship, and I've never tried to pull more levers, and I've never been desperate for a friendship to survive like I did. And there was nothing I could do to fix it. And it ended up really mattering because I was codependent. I didn't know that language. I didn't know how to call it that. I wasn't in therapy at the time, but now I can see I was codependent. The Lord had to close the door because the next year is when the Lord invited me to move to Nashville. And honest to heaven, I'm not sure I'd have gone because I was so committed to my friend.
Yeah.
And we are friends again after years and after some recovery. But I needed the Lord to close a door that I wasn't willing to close so he could open a better door for me.
Right.
And that's going to happen in relationship and in work. But tell Annie that a week ago when she's sobbing in front of her financial planner about like me. I mean, I haven't even told 5 dudes and me at a table, everyone in suits. I'm sobbing. It just had to be their worst meeting. Had to be their worst meeting of the week where I was just like, I would pull out. I mean, it was.
Yeah.
It was such a bad day. The meeting was scheduled on top of a day where we were having hard conversations with staff.
Sure.
And so I was scared about that, sobbing. So
Annie.
I understand that Annie 20 years ago learned a lesson about God closing the door that Annie 20 days ago was still scared again.
I got a question. How can you scent your home and keep your loved ones safe? Well, I don't know if you know this, but did you know that most air fresheners and candles release dangerous chemicals into the air? We don't want none of that in the Whittaker home, and I know y'all don't want none of that either. So, introducing AROMATRU, the state-of-the-art waterless atomizing diffuser that transforms essential oils into a fine mist without the need for water. This was the biggest selling point for my wife. Say goodbye to sticky messes and worries about mold or bacteria. AROMATRU's innovative design efficiently disperses up to 4 oils at a time. We love our AROMATRU diffuser. It is amazing. So, not only does AROMATRU make revolutionary diffusers, they're also dedicated to selling sustainably produced, USDA certified organic or wild-crafted essential oils, ensuring that you're breathing in only the purest, high-quality fragrances. Here is the offer. Sign up for AROMATRU's Insider Club today, and you'll receive a free waterless oil diffuser, like the one we have in our home, and a free lemon eucalyptus oil. That's over $200 in savings. This exclusive offer is only available by visiting aromatruorganics.com/humanhope. This offer won't be available on their main site. That's AROMATRU organics.com/HUMANHOPE. Make sure you spell it TRU, not TRUE. Join AROMATRU's Insider Club and scent your home organically. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data. So listen, I know for me, I ain't got time for all the busy work, so that's why I use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so that I can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help me hire faster. 93% of employers agree that Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites. Let Indeed do the big lifting for you. One of the things I love about Indeed is the user interface. It is seamless, it makes sense, and it is not confusing. Leverage over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, and join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Okay, here's the deal. Listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/humanhope. Just go to Indeed.com/humanhope right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/humanhope. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Yeah, your humanity is still your humanity. We're never going to achieve the perfected version of what our thoughts should be here. And so I would say, okay, so let's do this. Let's rewind for a second, because you know, you are people. I think people look at you and they're like, wow, like look at Annie, look at what she's built, look at you know, I asked you to be in this conversation specifically, maybe leaning towards a lot of what we're talking about, kind of leading things and figuring things out. When I joke that this is the first time that you've actually officially been like on my podcast which is just kind of weird because I think I'm on the That Sounds Fun like
you're on the Hall of Fun.
I'm in the Hall of Fun, right?
Which
like
means you've been on 5 times or more. Yeah.
Yes. So, now to be fair, you've had your podcast for 40 years, but you've had me over and over. But here's the kicker. So this is what I want to do. It's actually not true that this is the first time because you were on my podcast.
Yes.
In like 2011, I had a podcast.
Probably.
Which is just weird,
the
right?
Pew Party podcast.
Yes, it was called the Pew Party podcast.
Yeah.
And, it was just me. I had a microphone. Podcasts weren't like making money at this point. There were no podcast network. I was just like, oh my gosh, Annie, come over, do this. So that version of Annie, like at that point you were writing books and you were,
speaking at conferences.
I did not
have a podcast yet.
Definitely did not have a podcast. Definitely did not have a company.
No. I had an assistant.
You had an assistant.
A part-time assistant at that point, and I had 2 books out.
And you had 2 books out. Okay. Where you are now, was there a dream when we talked in 2011 or 2012, was there a like, this is what I'm going to build this thing. I'm going to build this. Because I think a lot of people will look at you and think like, okay, did she have her goals set up in 2011? Did she start putting these things in order? Like, was what you're doing right now in your framework of dreaming as a leader back then?
Yeah. So let me set a backdrop of, I own 2 companies.
Yep.
That Sounds Fun Network. I co-own it with our manager, Kelly. So I own That Sounds Fun Network. We're going to set that one aside because that's such a different thing.
Sure.
It's hard to dream up companies around products that don't exist when you start dreaming.
Totally,
right? It's that statement that we say to college students of like, we're preparing elementary school kids for jobs that don't exist yet.
Right.
And you're like, you're in college, you're going to probably have a job that doesn't exist. So, all through school. So put That Sounds Fun Network aside. We'll talk about AFD Inc. That is my company. That is my books, my speaking, and my podcast.
Okay.
So much like this show has a contract with That Sounds Fun Network, That Sounds Fun podcast also has a contract with That Sounds Fun Network. So
so it's its own entity outside of the network.
That's right.
Got it.
So when you're asking me about what did I dream up in 2012 or whenever I was on your show, at that time I was really good friends and still am with the country group Lady A.
Okay.
And what I was watching up close was how Lady A only did exactly what they were gifted to do, and they paid people to do everything else.
Wow.
So I was watching, and in fact, Hillary took me on the road with them a couple of times. She had like an extra bunk, and I didn't have a real job. I was like writing, and I didn't go to work like I go to work now. And so I went on the road with them a couple of times on the weekend, and I would watch, and Charles, Dave, and Hillary would write songs, play songs, and sing songs.
Okay.
And do interviews. That's it. They didn't do anything else. And I was like, wait, this makes sense to me. And so I didn't know to dream up AFD Inc. the way it looks now, but I did know pretty early, as soon as you can, hire anyone to do what you are not specifically gifted by God to do. Now, the other thing I learned is Barrett Ward, who is the CEO of Able, the fashion brand. Barrett also taught me when I worked for him, because I worked for him before my first books came out.
Oh, really?
He said, when you build a company, you need to know how to do everything before you hire someone else to do it.
Okay.
That really paid off for a long time. That's a little harder now because I don't know how to do the technology to edit a podcast.
Sure.
But the idea of someone needs to edit a podcast. I have concept of it. Every job that we have, I know how to do, or I know how to solve.
Yeah.
And that's something I learned from Barrett. Have I never told you how Barrett fired me?
No. First of all, I didn't even know that you worked for him.
Yes. Okay. I'll tell you this so fast. And then we'll talk about what I was dreaming up. I thought this was so profound when this happened. So I was doing a bazillion part-time jobs when I moved to Nashville. I thought I'd get a book deal. I thought I'd get rich. I thought that it would be my full-time job. And my first book deal came in 2011. I moved in 2008. Okay. So I lived in Nashville for 4 years without a book deal. And my first book deal was for $7,000.
Wow.
We get book deals over a 2-year window.
Yes.
And your agent gets 15% and the government gets 40% because I was self-employed. And so in the end, my first book deal netted me about $3,000.
Yeah. Wow.
So it certainly did not
pay a
bill. I mean, it like got me through a month, right? So when I moved here, I was a nanny for the Cowards, for Jeremy and Shannon. Mocha Club is what Barrett used to own when he was building Fashionable through African leadership. I was a volunteer and then I was a part-time employee there. So eventually I was running their social media for 25 hours a week.
Yeah.
So I get a book deal. You'll remember this. I moved to Scotland. I keep working part-time for Mocha Club while I'm there. I move back home and I get a book deal. And it's like November. And I'm planning to keep working at Able.
Okay.
And Mocha Club. Barrett catches a squirrel in his house. And the only way a squirrel doesn't come back to the place where it has broken in is if you send it over water. You have to put it on the other side of a river. Is what Barrett told me at the time.
What are you talking about? This is crazy.
I know. So he had trapped a squirrel. It was in his trunk. And he said, Annie, will you ride with me to East Nashville? Let's have a meeting in the car and about work and drop off this squirrel. So we get in the car and he says, hey, you don't need to work here anymore. And I was like, what? And he said, no one makes it big and then quits their day job. You have to jump.
Oh, wow.
He said, if you're going to make it big, you have to jump now. You can't quit your day job after. And I was like, I don't know how to pay the bill. What am I going to do? And he goes, okay, I'm going to give you till April 1st. I'm going to pay you for 3 months. Okay. So you've got 3 months to figure this out. And what I'm going to pay you to do is to hire someone better than you in your job. So I'm paying you for 3 months to replace yourself with someone better.
Wow.
And that was some of the best leadership I've ever experienced. Now, God made a way. I got offered a gig on a tour. And so other money was coming in. I didn't have to live off that $3,000. But it was such a generous firing because it showed he believed in me, but also showed that like, he was like, you got to jump, dude. Like, you're going to have to do this. So that's when I worked with Barrett until April 1st, 2012. And that's the first day I was AFD Inc. And this was a company.
Really? And who was your first hire? Who'd you hire first? Who was the first person?
I had interns first.
Oh, you did? That's right.
Which is such a gift. It's complicated to train someone for 6 months and then them be gone, but it is also free.
Yes.
And I was leading college ministry at Crosspoint with our college pastor and some other volunteers. And so I had college students around me all the time who needed credits.
Yeah.
And Belmont had a faith and arts department.
Wow.
And so they could do anything inside faith and arts. And so some of my small group girls interned for me. Some of my Vandy baseball players interned for me.
Yeah.
And then they had friends that needed credits. And so I worked with a professor at Belmont who would send me interns all the time. So I probably did interns for 1.5 years or 2 years. And I would just train them on anything, counting merch when we got back from an event. I mean, this was the days you've done these days, the days where we shipped the boxes of books.
Yep.
I came home and counted out the merch. I was training a volunteer. No one was traveling with me until I had a really bad event and had this moment of like, I can't be by myself in a hotel room because I get in my head too hard.
Yeah.
Like I can't not have someone to release the steam with a little bit.
Yes.
And so now I always take someone with me, but I didn't until that was 2013. So for a decade, I've always had someone with me. But it was interns at first, and then it was a part-time person. But I'll tell you, Carlos, this is probably good for our friends listening who are building businesses. My 4th book was coming out, and I went and applied to teach at the work at the parent teacher store in Green Hills because I wanted to pay an assistant.
Wow.
And I was like, I need help with my job.
Yep.
But I know how much I need the help. We will make more money once I have the help.
Right.
I don't have the money to pay the person.
Right.
And so I'm going to go get an after work job so that I can pay an assistant for my day job. So we'll start making more money in my day job so I don't have to do my after work job anymore.
Wow.
Yeah. But I mean, that's 4 books in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
like
people need to hear this.
Yeah.
4 books in, you know.
Yeah. My 4th book, Let's All Be Brave. When Let's All Be Brave was coming out was when I went and applied to the parent teacher store.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
That is, you know, it's fascinating to hear that, but also like, this is actually really great. I think the direction this conversation is going for people that are like, okay, I want to build something. I feel like I'm called to build something, but I don't know here's the question. How do I know if hiring somebody is going to bring in more money? That was a risk. It's like, okay, I'm going to go to the parent teacher store or whatever. I'm going to get an extra job so I can bring somebody that hopefully is going to bring in more money into the company. How did you kind of figure that hire was going to do that for you?
Because it actually released time when I can give answering emails or booking speaking events, when I can hand that off to someone, then I have more time and I am actually the moneymaker. Right. I am the machine that makes the money in this scenario, right? So for one of our friends who's listening who maybe is like, she does monograms on things. She either can be monogramming or answering emails. She cannot be doing both. And so the sooner you get someone else answering your emails, the more hours you open up to monogram.
Yes.
And so I needed more monogramming hours. And so you can't be sure. Now, here's a stat that I heard early in this that I think is really helpful. When you hire an agent or a manager, someone who takes a % of your money, you should see that start to pay off for you in more work and a higher income in 6 to 9 months.
Okay.
That will not be in month 4. You'll be like, man, this person's getting 15% of my income.
Absolutely.
And it's not helping. Well, it's not, because they've only had 4 months to put you on the road. They've only had 4 months to help you get events. They've only had, 6 to 9 months. You should start to see an increase in your business, which was true when I hired Lee from MadJet and Kelly with KCH, now H Squared.
Yeah.
And so with an assistant, you should know pretty quickly, has this freed me up?
Yes.
Like, has this freed me up enough that I am able to do more things? Am I, if I'm not getting more monogram orders, am I at least able to be online more and commenting more and posting more, which will bring me more orders?
Yep.
So I'd say I would say give an assistant a year, give a manager and an agent 18 months, which is going to be a heck of a lot of hustle for you as the person. I mean, that's a long time.
Listen, it's so funny. So, Annie and I, as you mentioned before, have the same management company, right? So Kelly is kind of flying next to us, looking around, looking at things that we're not looking at. But I'm only a year, maybe a little over a year into my relationship with KCH and management. And Annie told me at the very beginning, you literally were the one that said this. You're like, hey, listen, it's going to feel really like I'm just giving my money away. Like,
I'm giving a percent of my money that I was not giving yesterday.
I was not giving yesterday. But then to watch that begin to grow, and like this book is actually the first thing that KCH's fingerprints are kind of all over, and already it's doing things that none of my other books, have ever done. So,
you are proof in the pudding. Everybody can just look and go like, look how this launch is different because I have a train behind me.
Oh my gosh.
That I didn't have. Yeah, that's right.
Just last week, I released my brand new Don't Stand on Issues, Walk with People gray t-shirt. And do you know where I released it? I released it on Shopify. Listen, when I started doing Instagram and podcasting, an online store was the furthest thing from my mind, but now I'm selling t-shirts and hats and all sorts of things. And guess what? It is so easy, all because I use Shopify. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real life store stage, all the way to the, did we just hit 1 million order stage? I haven't hit that stage yet, but Shopify is there to help you grow. So whether you're promoting protein powders, selling superb supplements, or t-shirts, Shopify helps you sell everywhere, from their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify has you covered. Okay. Shopify also helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout, up to 36 times better compared to other leading platforms. And sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, which is their AI-powered all-star. Listen, here's the deal. I don't have time to be monitoring my Shopify store all the time. Shopify does this for me. It actually even reminds your buyers, hey, you left something in the cart. You want to pick that up? Shopify does it all for you. So sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Carlos, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Carlos now to grow your business no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Carlos.
Did you know that Americans spend an average of 90% of their time indoors and take about 20,000 breaths a day? That's a lot of breathing inside. Listen, the indoor air that we breathe is 2 to 5 times more polluted than the outdoor air, and in some cases, up to 100 times more polluted, according to the EPA. Here's the deal. We've got to find a solution, and I think I found the best one yet. It is called the Air Doctor. What in the world is the Air Doctor? Well, Air Doctor is an air filter that filters out 99.99% of dangerous contaminants, so your lungs don't have to. This includes pollutants such as allergens, pollen, pet dander, dust mites, mold spores, and even bacteria and viruses that make you sick. So here's what I did for the Carlos Whittaker podcast familia. Air Doctor comes with a 30-day breathe easy money back guarantee. So if you don't love it, just send it back for a refund minus the shipping. Let me tell you the truth. We have an Air Doctor humming in our home right now, and it is helping so much. Head to airdoctorpro.com and use promo code HUMANHOPE. You'll receive up to $300 off air purifiers, exclusive to podcast customers. You'll also receive a free 3-year warranty on any unit, which is an additional $84 value. Lock in this special offer by going to airdoctorpro.com and use promo code HUMANHOPE.
Now you're running AFD Inc.
Yeah.
You're running That Sounds Fun Network. And
Yeah.
I say you're running, like there's people running.
That's right. I'm the
running.
day-to-day CEO of AFD Inc. I am not in that role at the network. The network has a team that is really running the network. Kelly and I are there for support and oversight and final decisions and big money decisions. But the team is really, as you know, they're extraordinary and they're really running it.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me this. I mean, you got a little vulnerable with this earlier, and we can put this in the podcast or not.
I don't mind.
But running a company right now that you're saying, gosh, like they're rock stars, they're running this thing. But podcasting in general is just, every single podcast is trying to figure things out.
Yes.
As there's people that are listening to this right now that are running things or leading things where maybe some of the levers aren't working like they used to work anymore. And they're leading teams of people that are like, oh, we're trying everything we can. How do you lead in a season where levers aren't working like they used to and employees are looking to you for like, hey, like this has been a bump. What do we do? Like, how does Annie lead in those seasons? It can apply to really anything, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the industry is just changing really rapidly, and it's changing in some really good ways. But one of the ways that anybody who listens to podcasts knows, one of the terrible updates that Spotify and Apple have made is when they're finished listening to this, Apple's or Spotify, wherever they're listening, is going to automatically play another show, and it's not going to be a Carlos Whittaker show.
Right.
Now they switch you to another show somehow that their algorithm has said, well, if you liked Carlos, I bet you'll like XYZ over here. And it used to be, if you liked Carlos, here's another Carlos, here's another Carlos, here's another Carlos. That has drastically changed our business. For a lot of people. So here's a couple of things we're doing. One is we have a business coach. We have a business coach that comes in and meets with me and meets with Kelly and I and meets with Kelly. We actually, between the two of us, we have 2 coaches. One works just with me, one works just with Kelly. And the one who works with Kelly is also our network coach.
Got it.
That really helps because paying a business coach who is working with other businesses can go, hey, this isn't novel.
That's so
you aren't
good.
having something happen to you that's never happened to anyone else on the planet. In fact, our business coach said we got 3 choices, and as this industry is changing, ABC, you pick the choice, and I'll give you the checklist of how we execute. It's like, oh my gosh, thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're not in it alone. Now, does that cost money? Yes, it does.
Yeah.
We are paying those coaches, but that costs money. A thing that costs me no money is I've been getting to work 15 minutes early. So I am not the third one there anymore. I'm the first one there because I want the team to see, hey, when things feel stressful, when Annie is stressed, she's not here less, she's here more.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
she is available to us more.
Yeah.
And so that is, we all are making decisions this summer that are saying to each other, this isn't exactly the schedule we had planned,
right?
But we're available because we recognize it matters to be available to each other.
That's so
And so
good.
that doesn't cost me anything except time. Right. The coach costs us money. Me getting to, and you know how I figured out to do that, Carlos? A couple of months ago, I did an Instagram post and I said, hey, if you have a podcast, send me your best episode. I want to listen. Because I was curious in the midst of all this change in the industry, how many of my followers have their own show?
Wow.
I thought I'd get, and I said, I'll listen to them. I want to listen to your show.
Yeah.
I thought I'd get 100, 350 later.
Wow.
So we have a playlist of 350 podcasts.
That's cool.
That my audience has created. As I'm listening, so I listen to them. I try to listen to a couple a day. I'm trying to get through all 350 this year. It is not easy, as you can imagine, but I'm grateful to get to do it. One of the podcasts was a business podcast, and it said, when things are hard at work, go in 15 minutes early. And I said, okay.
That's so cool.
So thank God for business podcasts that say when your company is in a season that feels stressful, if the boss is there early, that matters. I didn't think that up. I listened to a podcast that told me to do that.
Right.
And so I was coached for free via a podcast.
Look at that.
And so that's how I show up. I also, I am not a very good poker face when I'm stressed. And so my team experiences it. Like, Annie, this is hard for you, these decisions we're making and what we're having to do. And that, they say, can we help you? I'm like, no, I just got to get the next thing done. We're doing the best we can. And so I think showing up honest is important too. If you show up and
that's so good.
honest and hopeful is who I try to be. I don't want to sugarcoat things and be like, you guys, best season ever.
Right,
it's like we have to call a pruning, and we have to look at a pruning and go, God is in this.
Yes.
And so everybody hang on, because I don't know what God's doing, but there is the other side of a pruning.
Yeah.
And so that matters. When industry shift, like you're talking about, like for our friends listening who are going, how do I lead through this? You have two options. You can leave the industry that is shifting because it is shifting away from a way you feel called to, or you can buckle down and stay in the industry and see what happens on the other side of whatever the challenging season is.
Yeah.
We've seen podcasts do both. There's friends of ours who have walked away from shows this year and gone like, I did what I was called to do. Yep. I'm finished. Yep. Okay. That's great.
Yeah. Wow.
That is not what I feel called to do. I'm going to make it. But at the same time, we stopped. Let's read the Gospels. We finished what God had asked us to do. I knew we were done. So we did 17 months of a daily podcast, and it's finished. And so what does that make space for? What does that make possible now? And that's what we're figuring out. Does that answer your question?
That is so good. No, this is also good. I mean, have you ever thought, obviously you have to be called to this thing, but you literally are just so good in this space, right? From what I see, and I've gotten to see behind the scenes. I've seen you lead. I've seen you get stressed. I've seen you handle the stress. I've seen you the way you do things. And have you thought about speaking more into the business side of what people's dreams are? And I just want to encourage you in that you're really gifted in this, and you're gifted in speaking at it. Is this something that you've ever thought about talking more about?
It's very kind, Carlos. People ask me a lot of questions about business, and so I love answering them. It feels really presumptive to be like, I don't kind of have the cojones of some of our friends who are like, I'm a leader to leaders. Line up.
Totally.
I'm just not, I don't feel that, but I'm always very happy to talk. I love leading a business. I am like lit up when we are working on business things. I mean, I
you
love
do.
working.
You freaking love it.
I love it. So I'm very happy to talk about it. Like you said the other day when our management company announced this cohesion between two management companies coming together, and I got to talk about it on social media and then answer questions. I was like, let me help you figure out when you need an agent, when you need a manager, when you need an employee. Like, I love talking about it. So in a world where we can figure out how to share this well without where it feels right to me, because our friends who are leaders of leaders feel called to that.
Sure.
I would probably need to feel like the Lord was like, here's the platform, here's the way. Go
because that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. It's a whole other thing. I mean, Christy Wright does it so beautifully.
Right.
Carrie Newhoff, Tyler Reagan. I mean, there's just so many people I'm thinking of. My brain is thinking of so many people.
Sure.
Tasha Morrison. There's just teaching us how to lead really well that feel called to that. So that to say, that's a very high compliment. Thank you for saying that. Well, I love talking about it. I'm available to talk about it anytime.
Yeah, no, it's good. I just, I'm so proud of you. Like
Thanks. You've watched the whole thing.
I've watched the whole thing, and now I get to kind of watch it right next to you with, as some of the teams that we work together, overlap with each other. And it is just, I just need everybody to know how beautiful it is on the inside, Annie.
Thanks.
Like you lead so well. And you are a leader to leaders. I understand that sometimes you don't want to name that with yourself, but I do feel like it's so funny when I turned 50. Something happened when I turned 50 where I just was like, you know what? Like, cause I used to kind of feel the same way. And I think there's seasons where we should feel that way.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel now that I'm like, no, I do know a lot.
Yeah.
And I actually, all the white hair on my beard now that wasn't there 5 years ago, like there are things that I am going to teach that I do feel like an expert in now. And, as a few people have read my book and they're like, you wrote this one with the confidence that you hadn't written.
That's what people are saying behind your back. That's what people are saying behind your back is that this is a very confident book.
Yeah. And so, just again, I'm just speaking confidence over you. I'm just speaking that Annie, like I'm learning from you, and maybe when you turn 50.
Yeah, I had John Eldridge on my show at the end of June. It's beautiful. It's all about how to like get ready for summer. He's just who's better? Who's better?
Oh, who's better?
And I said, I feel a shift in you in the last year. I said to him, something has shifted in you. You are fathering us.
Yeah,
like you're fathering the entire internet. What's the deal? I said, am I observing a correct shift? And he said, yes. He said, I've watched some of the men and women older than me pass away. And he said, and I'm realizing it's time for me to father. And it's time for me to father more publicly. And he was like, I feel that. But even in the whole interview, Carlos, when you listen, you'll hear it because you and I are talking to each other. John Eldridge is not talking to me. He's talking to everybody listening. I'm asking a question. He's going, you know what? That's a great, okay, gang, listen up. What Annie and I are saying is that, and then he goes to discipling my listeners.
Yeah,
he was not talking to me for half the show. He was talking to, and so you're modeling a thing for me, you and John both, of like, let's call ourselves where we are in the system. Yeah. And I am the middle-aged in the system. I am not the young in the system. I'm not the John Eldridge in the system, but I'm for women in this system, we have Priscilla, Beth, Lisa Harper. Yes. We have some of these women that are leading a generation above us. Yeah. And so I'm watching them and have been, but also I'm in the middle. I'm not at the bottom.
Right there. And I think that's important. That's important for, let me talk to the listeners now, like John did. For everybody to understand that it's okay to look at where you are at in your life, in the season that you're at, and to look and go, wow. I mean, the other day, Annie, I was in the airport, and I don't know why this popped up in my head, but I was like, let me look at how many people I'm older than.
Oh.
And suddenly, like, everyone that was walking by, I was like, oh, they've got toddlers. That guy's young. Like, I was
those are independent adults who are much younger than me.
Yeah. Yeah. And suddenly I was like, I'm older than most people that are here. And so, somebody asked me, I think it's really, healthy to take check marks, and you're looking at your life. And suddenly when I had that thought, I thought to myself, okay, well, I'm 50. Let me think for a second. When I started working at North Point in 2007, Andy Stanley, my first week I was there, turned 50.
Oh, wow.
And I remember Andy's the same age as Louie, who's the same age as Erwin, who's at the same age as, and a few weeks ago when I was in the airport, I was like, wait a second, I'm the same age as when I got to North Point. And Andy was like, he was stepping into the most influential season he'd ever had in his life.
Yeah.
And so what I did that day, I was like, wow, I actually called it like I'm stepping into my Andy Stanley, Craig Groeschel, Erwin McManus season of when they were pouring into me. Suddenly the next 10, 15 years, I'm getting to walk in those shoes that they were in that season for me. And so I just start thinking like, okay, people are actually going to want to listen to me now.
That's right.
Because they're looking for what I looked for in him. And I think it's okay to take market in your life. Does that make sense?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's brilliant. I think that matters a lot for people to, and I'll say this. Christine Kane said to me 6 months ago, a year ago.
Yeah.
Your most influential decades are in this order: your 60s, your 70s, your 50s.
Wow.
And she was like, so you are walking towards your most impactful decades of your life. Are you emotionally, spiritually, physically healthy enough to do the most coming up in the next years? And I was like, let's go on a jog. Let's like, am I having my quiet time? Am I seeing my counselor? Cause that's how I feel at 43. I think, okay, I'm coming up to when culture, when faith, when Bible models, besides Jesus, we are actually most effective in the next 3 decades of my life. So I'm grateful for what I've done in my 20s, 30s, and 40s, but I'm like, I'm jogging and I'm ready to run,
Yep. That's so good. That's so good. This has been amazing.
Oh, you're so kind.
I just love you. I'm so proud of you.
I love you too. Thank you.
I'm so grateful that we get to work next to each other and cheer each other on. You're the biggest cheerleader. You just are.
Thank you.
You're everything that everybody needs Annie to be right now. Bud. And so just thank you for being you.
Thank you. I love you. I appreciate that.
I'm proud of you. That was everything that I wanted it to be. So many nuggets. Or some of the nuggets. Well, how about this? Let's call ourselves where we are in the system. When she said that. Like, where are you in the system of what it is, the season of life that you're in? Call it out. Speak it out. I think, I used to be so, and this goes back to the ageist conversation that I had with my friend Mimi, but I used to be so like, I don't know, like, I didn't look forward to getting older. And now that I'm getting older, I'm like, this is freaking amazing. How about the fact that like the most influential decades, I love this. Now, I don't know if there's data on this, but I'm assuming that most of you, not all of you, but most of you aren't in the most influential decades yet, especially if it's the first most influential decade is your 60s, then your 70s, then your 50s. Holy cow. Like, I'm just starting my influence then. That gets me excited. That makes me think, okay, it's time to really get to work. So listen, look at where you are in your life, and get ready to take stock, because I feel like a lot of us are in a season where we can really turn on our God-given ability to influence those around us in some way, shape, or form. Thank you, Annie, for the conversation. Thank you for being my friend. And also thank you, Dr. Delight, for just creating this beat that just feels so good. Hit it, please. All right, that's it. I will see you next Thursday for another edition of the Carlos Whittaker Podcast. I have one favor to ask you. Will you please share the show with as many people as you can? Put the needle on the record and the drum beat goes like this. I should say the bass line goes like this because, again, do you guys hear this bass line? Way better than the drum beat. See you next week. Love you guys.